So my family invited my wife and me to talk things out and make things better. But it turned out they wanted me to leave my wife and marry someone they like more. I didn't want that, so I left. I'm a 35-year-old guy from a small town where everyone knows each other's business. It's the kind of place where people still wave to their neighbors from their porches, and Sunday potlucks are a big deal. But it's a dying town and I knew I had to leave. I always loved photography, but my family expected me to work on our farm. I loved the farm, but I felt like something was missing. My older brother Alan was the only one who understood me. When he went to college, he saved up to buy me my first camera, which I cherished. Despite being good at school and football, I felt unsatisfied. In college, I met Elena, who was stunning with her blonde hair and blue eyes. She was on the cheerleading squad and we bonded over our love of photography. That shared passion became the start of our friendship and love story. When I finally asked Elena out on an official date for the first time, she seemed a bit hesitant, but she agreed. I was overjoyed and couldn't contain my excitement. I planned our first date meticulously, wanting it to be perfect for this amazing woman who had stolen my heart. I chose a charming little Italian restaurant in the heart of the city, where soft candlelight created a warm and intimate atmosphere. As we sat across from each other, a mix of nervousness and anticipation filled the air. I was captivated by her smile and the way her eyes sparkled in the candlelight. We shared stories, laughter, and our favorite Italian dishes, and with each passing moment, Elena's initial hesitation seemed to fade away. It was a night of connection and discovery, and I couldn't have asked for more. After dinner, we decided to take a leisurely stroll through a nearby park. As we walked, Elena opened up to me about a secret she had kept since college. She was a single mother to a 2-year-old boy named Harry. She had gotten pregnant at 16 by her then-boyfriend Nick, who didn't stick around when she broke the news. Despite the challenges, Elena chose to keep her baby with the support of her parents, who helped her financially. She tearfully explained why she hadn't dated anyone in the last 2 years and had kept this part of her life to herself. She decided to open up to me after our first date so that I could decide whether to continue pursuing her. As she shared everything about her life, I could see the vulnerability in her eyes, the weight of a story she had carried alone for so long. In that moment, as Elena hesitated, waiting for my reaction, I felt a surge of admiration for her. Without hesitation, I took her hand and expressed my genuine appreciation for her honesty. I assured her that her past didn't change my feelings for her and that her strength only deepened my admiration. With those words, I saw a mixture of relief and gratitude wash over Elena's face. She hadn't expected such an understanding response, and the weight she carried seemed to lift, if only a little. That first date became a cherished memory, the beginning of our love story. In the years to come, I truly didn't mind that she had a child, because I knew that if Elena was as solid and honest a person as she seemed, then her child would be just as wonderful. We continued going on dates, and after 6 months, she introduced me to her parents. They welcomed me with open arms, displaying the same warmth and kindness that Elena herself radiated. It didn't take long for me to feel like a part of their family. We shared stories over homemade dinners, and I could see where Elena got her resilience and genuine kindness. This was also the first time I met Harry, her precious 2-year-old. When Harry toddled into the room, his eyes curious and innocent, my heart melted. Elena introduced us, and from that moment I knew my life was about to change. I won't lie, I had always dreamed of becoming a father. When Harry held my hand in his little fingers and looked up at me, I fell in love with him the same way I had fallen in love with his mother. I couldn't imagine how anybody could have abandoned him, but I knew that if I was going to be in Elena's life, I needed to step up. Elena never asked me to help Harry out because she had support at home, but I enjoyed spending time with her child. He had the most adorable smile, and being with him made me forget all the negative things in my life. Elena and I had a wonderful relationship, and she always encouraged me to follow my passions. I decided to join a photography club in college, which opened up new possibilities for me. It was difficult to balance the club with classes and football practice, but it was a good decision in the long run as it helped me meet like-minded people, some of whom I'm still in touch with today. When my parents visited me in college, I took the opportunity to introduce them to Elena, hoping they would see the wonderful person she was. Initially, they seemed to appreciate her company, but during a private conversation, I told them about Harry, and their reaction wasn't great at first. My parents looked utterly shocked by this revelation. When my mom asked if I was dating a single mom in college, I said yes. My dad couldn't believe it either and asked if I was serious. I firmly told them that I loved Elena just as much as I loved Harry, and her status as a single mother didn't matter to me. I wanted to take care of them for the rest of my life. Understandably, my parents tried to talk me out of it, questioning my choice. Despite their attempts to discourage me, I stood my ground. Eventually, they gave up, perhaps hoping it was just a phase, as my mother called it. After graduating college, I decided to take a chance and join a photography internship. My parents were against it, with my dad even saying it sounded too girly for me. I laughed and tried to explain that photography was my passion. Despite their attempts to discourage me, when I secured the internship, there was little they could do to stand in my way. Elena, on the other hand, supported me completely. She believed in me and encouraged me to take this leap of faith. Even my older brother, who was now married and back on the farm, was happy for me. He had always enjoyed working alongside my dad, and my parents held immense pride in him for carrying on the family legacy. While my parents never resented me, there was a lingering hint of disappointment. Whenever I talked to my parents about my passion for photography, it was evident that I hadn't turned out like my brother. Though unspoken, the contrast was palpable. Yet they never held it against me. Instead, they hoped I would find my own path. During the photography internship, I was fully immersed in a whirlwind of learning and creativity. The workload was demanding, with late nights spent perfecting shots and mastering the art of storytelling through my lens. It was challenging but fulfilling, testing my dedication to photography. As the internship drew to a close, to my surprise and delight, the company offered me a full-time position as their photographer. With this new chapter in my life, I found myself exploring corners of the world I had only dreamed of. The opportunity to travel and capture beauty was incredible. Each new city, culture, and landscape became a canvas for my camera, and I soaked in the wonder of it all. For the first time, I felt profound happiness and fulfillment resonating through every aspect of my being. However, this newfound joy came with challenges. My busy work schedule meant that Elena and I were in a quasi-long-distance relationship for 3 years. Despite the physical distance, we made it work. I visited her and Harry whenever possible. The separation was tough, but our connection remained steadfast. This is why I've always loved Elena. She never resented or doubted me, even when I was miles away. When I finally secured a high-paying job that allowed me to settle down, I decided it was time to propose to Elena. I asked her parents for permission first, out of respect. They were overjoyed with the news and couldn't wait for me to be a part of their family. However, when I informed my parents, the reaction was completely opposite. My mother was shocked and started ranting about how immature I was for marrying a single mother like Elena. My dad told me straight away that this would be the worst mistake of my life and that I needed to find a different woman. My parents insisted that I should have a child of my own instead of taking care of someone else's child. They painted a picture of me being stuck with Elena forever, suggesting that she had somehow trapped me into caring for her son because his own father didn't. Their reactions deeply hurt me, and I felt extremely sad that they thought so poorly of my future wife. Despite their disapproval, I stood my ground firmly. I explained that over the past 3 years I had traveled worldwide, working tirelessly to establish myself as a photographer. Throughout this journey, Elena stood by me. She was a strong, independent woman with a great job, and she never rushed me into proposing to her. She never once asked me to take care of Harry. It was my choice to bond with her child, and now I couldn't imagine life without them. My parents didn't like my answer and tried to involve my older brother and his wife in the matter. Surprisingly, my brother Alan didn't fully support my parents, but he didn't take sides either. However, his wife joined my parents in trying to convince me that there were better options than Elena. Frustration built up and I left in anger as they'd all seemed to gang up on me. It was a tough moment, feeling outnumbered and misunderstood by those I expected to support me. Regardless of their decision, I proposed to Elena, and with joy in her eyes, she said yes. That memory is etched into my brain, and it remains the happiest day of my life. From the very beginning, I told Elena about my family's disapproval. She felt sad about it, but being the kind-hearted person she is, she understood their perspective. She even suggested that it wasn't too late for me to walk away, given the strain my family's opposition might put on our relationship. I reassured her that my decision was final and that I would never leave her and Harry until my last breath. Despite my repeated attempts to make my family understand and respect my decision, they continued to call, trying to change my mind. They felt that Elena was wrong for me, making it a tough time for me. In one heated moment, my mother even declared that they wouldn't attend our wedding if I went along with this decision. I calmly replied that it was entirely her decision and I would understand if they were not present for my happy day. Eventually, Elena and I chose to get married at the courthouse, knowing my family wouldn't be there, so there was no point in having a big ceremony. Her parents stood by us, offering their support and love. Because we hadn't wasted away our savings on a big wedding, we could afford to buy a house together. It took a bit of struggle, but we were able to achieve our dreams. Waking up with my wife by my side has been the most wonderful feeling in the world. Harry, now 5 years old, adds so much joy to our lives. He's a bundle of energy, always curious and full of laughter. Being a part of his growth and seeing the family, the life we've built together, fills my heart with happiness. Despite the challenges we've faced along our journey, the love we share as a family makes every struggle worth it. After marrying Elena, I chose to distance myself from my parents to avoid their negativity. My happiness now revolves around Elena, Harry, and her parents. Work was going smoothly, and everything fell into place just as I had envisioned. However, last week my brother, who hadn't reached out to me in a while, called. Seeing his name on my phone surprised me, and part of me hesitated to answer, but I thought it could be an emergency, so I took the call. He expressed how much he missed me and apologized for not calling sooner. This was unusual for my brother, who seldom expressed his emotions. I asked him if everything was okay, and he told me that our parents wanted to invite me and Elena to the farm to mend things with us. I was surprised to hear this, as I never thought this day would come. My brother asked if it was okay for my mother to speak with me and passed the call to her. My mother's voice carried a mix of uncertainty and a hint of desperation as she spoke about wanting to mend our strained relationship. She expressed how everyone in the family wanted to see me and Elena at the family farm. As she continued talking, I couldn't help but feel a sense of skepticism. I questioned whether this was a genuine attempt to reconcile with us or just another episode in the ongoing family drama. My mother insisted that they were genuinely apologetic and seeking a chance to rebuild our connections. Caught in a whirlwind of emotions, I hesitated. The wounds from the past were still fresh, and the idea of revisiting my family was daunting. Yet a part of me longed for resolution, for a chance to heal the fractures that have formed over the past months. With a deep breath, I thanked my mother for reaching out and promised her that Elena and I would be there this weekend. We left Harry under the care of Elena's parents so we could fly down to my hometown. Arriving at the farm, my parents warmly greeted me and welcomed Elena with open arms. My brother and his wife came up to hug us, and it felt wonderful to see my family after so long. However, as I turned my head to the living room, confusion washed over us as we were met with a gathering of familiar faces and close family friends. I looked at my parents confused, and they informed me that they had decided to invite a few of their friends and family to give me a proper welcome back home. I nodded and walked in to greet everyone. My mother, wearing a sly smile, pulled me aside and introduced me to a woman named Gigi. I was taken aback, not understanding why she was introducing me to someone at what was supposed to be a family gathering. My mother then went on to say how Gigi was her high school best friend's daughter, and she had recently gone through a divorce. I nodded awkwardly, not knowing how to react. My mother continued, saying how she thought Gigi and I would make a great couple, and my confusion turned into disbelief. She started talking about how we would look so good together and should probably exchange numbers. As I looked at my mother incredulously, it suddenly dawned on me that this gathering wasn't just about mending things. My parents had an agenda, and it involved Gigi becoming a part of my life. I asked my mother why she was talking like this when she knew that I was married. My dad, who had perhaps overheard the conversation, told me that he needed to speak to me privately. Reluctantly, I agreed and followed them to a room, leaving Elena alone to navigate the awkward glances of curious guests. Behind closed doors, my parents wasted no time in revealing their true intentions. "Mark, we've arranged this meeting because we believe it's time for you to reconsider your marriage to Elena," my father declared with an air of authority, leaving me stunned. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. They explained their reasoning, insisting that Gigi, with her familiar background, would be a better match for me, someone they could approve of who didn't already have a child with another man. "But I love Elena," I protested. "We're married and building a life together. What made you even think it would be a good idea to introduce me to Gigi?" I struggled to make sense of the surreal situation. My mother, unmoved, insisted they were only looking out for my happiness and that I would thank them one day for helping me escape my current situation. My dad told me that Gigi was divorced, so she wouldn't mind marrying me if I quickly got a divorce from Elena. I stared at my parents for a moment, then started laughing at the sheer ridiculousness of it all. This seemed like something out of a soap opera, but I couldn't believe it was actually happening to me in real life. My parents had invited me under the pretense of mending things, only to try to convince me to divorce the love of my life and marry someone else just because they hated my choice. They seriously believed that I would somehow be convinced. My dad, probably feeling defensive, tried justifying their actions by saying they had discussed it with my brother and his wife as well. According to him, everyone thought I made a huge mistake marrying Elena. That statement pushed me over the edge. Despite usually keeping my cool, I couldn't contain my anger. I've always respected my parents deeply, but this was too much. I raised my voice, expressing how embarrassing and hurtful their attempts to make me leave my wife and child were. I made it clear that I was done holding on to hope that they would change. It was a breaking point. Honestly, as I walked into the backyard, I found Elena talking to some of my relatives in a hushed tone. I whispered to her that we needed to leave immediately. She looked shocked, but my expression made her trust me without questioning anything further. My brother and his wife insisted that we stay, but I didn't even acknowledge them. I was so angry at my brother for knowing about this plan all along and allowing it to happen. I didn't want to create a scene, so I quietly rescheduled our flight tickets and we left. During the flight, I filled Elena in on the conversation with my parents. She was just as shocked and a bit pissed at how they tried to pressure me into divorcing her. Since that weekend, I've been bombarded with calls and messages from my parents and my brother. He thinks I should not have shouted at my parents and that I should be a better son, saying they know me best and I should at least listen to them. I apologize for fighting with my parents for trying to convince me to leave my wife and our child just because they don't approve of our marriage. Update 1. Thank you everyone for all your support for us at this tough time. I guess everyone pretty much agrees that what my parents did was completely out of line. The only reason I was feeling guilty about my decision to yell at them and leave the party was that being the youngest, I have never really stood up to my parents this way. I knew that they didn't like my wife and I was okay with it, but to go so far as to try to convince me to leave her for another woman was absolutely despicable. What really surprised me the most was that my brother was in on this. We were close growing up and he has always supported my passion, but I never expected him to stand against my decision to get married to Elena. More than my parents, it hurts me that my brother betrayed me. He could have easily given me a heads up so I could have avoided all this, yet he chose to stay silent. I'm planning on calling him tomorrow after I've calmed down from this whole situation. As promised, here's an update. I texted my brother Alan to call me whenever he was free, knowing that he stays busy at the farm the whole day. He called me during the evening and I confronted him about what had happened between me and our parents. I straight up asked him if it was true that he had known about this all along. To my disappointment, Alan told me that he indeed knew about it and thought Gigi was a wonderful woman who could make me happy if I gave her the chance. I told him how wrong the entire family was to treat me and Elena this way when we had done nothing to warrant such hate from them. Alan then told me that everyone loved me and wanted me to be happy, so I asked him what made him specifically think that I was not happy with Elena. He took a moment to think and then told me that I needed to realize the fact that Harry was never going to be my real son. He believed that I needed to divorce Elena so I could marry Gigi and hopefully start a family, which could take our family legacy forward and keep our traditions alive. I couldn't believe what I was hearing from my brother. It was clear that he had become too influenced by what my parents wanted, and as their dutiful son, he wanted to only do things that they approved of. Hence, when I didn't listen to my family and married someone they hated, my brother didn't understand me. We argued back and forth some more, and it became clear that he was not going to support my marriage. He suggested that maybe I should consider their perspective and think about the consequences of my actions, as this would seriously affect our family. Feeling betrayed and hurt, I ended the call. I won't lie, but I cried a bit after my call with my older brother. I had never imagined that a day would come when my own brother would treat me and my wife so despicably. I knew that if my family, including my brother, thought this way about my marriage, then there was no way that they would ever change their minds. I never wanted to subject Elena and Harry to this toxic drama. I've never regretted marrying her, so I needed to let go of people who didn't want to be a part of our life. I want Harry to grow up around people who genuinely love and support him. Update 3. Thanks to everyone for your continued feedback on my post. This post seems to have gone viral and I am getting multiple requests from strangers for an update, so here it goes. It's been 5 months now since my last update and my life has been a bit more peaceful ever since my last argument with my family. I've been wanting to legally adopt Harry so that no one can ever question whether or not he is my son. Last week, I finally had a conversation with my wife and her parents regarding this. It was heartwarming to see the smiles on their faces as they supported my decision. Harry's birth father, Nick, has never been present, and while Nick's parents provide monthly child support, they have remained uninvolved in Harry's life since his birth. The legal process might be a challenging journey, but I have been with Harry and watched him grow up for so many years, so I can't wait for the day when he can be legally recognized as my son. Now regarding my parents, they have never apologized to me since the incident. They never once acknowledged how disappointing their actions were in trying to break my marriage. After my last talk with my brother, I just texted my parents in the family group chat expressing that I couldn't handle their negativity and drama anymore. I wished them well for the future and made it clear that they shouldn't reach out to me. In response, my mother sent a threatening message saying if I didn't do what they wanted, they would ensure I wasn't included in their will. I didn't bother replying back to her because, with all honesty, I don't really care. I hope they leave everything behind for my brother and his family, as I'm quite happy with what I have. Meanwhile, my wife and I have been doing great these past few months. Initially, Elena was very hurt by what my parents did on that day, but over time she has let go. She is the sort of kind-hearted person who believes that we should always focus on the positive things in our life, which I wholeheartedly agree with. Every morning, I wake up feeling joyous watching her lay next to me, her peaceful face a reminder of the love we share. We have always found strength in one another, no matter what challenges life throws our way, and will continue to do so in the future. I hope this will be my last update regarding this incident, as I want to close this chapter forever and focus on my life ahead.